Hello and welcome to the DeLissa webinar for Spring 2023, hearing from University Career Services. I'm Michael Crossfox, the Academic Support Assistant in DLIS, and welcome Kenneth Emegabo. Was that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Kenneth is our dedicated career and internship advisor for MSLIS students. Of course, he does a lot of work for St. John's College of Liberal Arts and Sciences in this capacity. And today he's just going to give us an overview of Handshake, which is the employment database that all of our students have access to while you're in the program, even remote students like you. So he was going to walk us through a few resources and identify other services provided by University Career Services. So thanks again, Kenneth, for doing this for us. So this is an annual tradition in DLIS to keep us updated on the latest and greatest advances in career services. And so take it away, Kenneth.
Sure. So I am going to be doing an introduction of Handshake, and that is the piece of it. But I also feel like it's necessary for me to include an overview of how to write a resume, because when you go on Handshake, one of the great things that come from utilizing Handshake is that if you have a resume and all the elements of a resume, you can either attach your resume to your Handshake profile, or even better, take the parts of your resume and use them to populate your Handshake profile. So I will be doing a Handshake overview, and then from that, I'll jump right into resume writing workshop for everybody. What I will do also is I'm going to turn off my camera so we can really focus on the slides, because I know that that's what people are here to see. You're not really here to take a look at me. So I will turn my camera off and the slides will speak for me. So here we go. Welcome to Career Services Handshake Overview, as well as Resume Writing Workshop. My name is Kenneth Emegabo, and I am the Career and Internship Advisor here at St. John's University. I do work with our populations in St. John's College for Liberal Arts and Sciences, and I always look forward to doing this particular workshop because I know that it is valuable to our DLIS students. Knowing that you are moving out beyond your career here at St. John's and looking for jobs and looking to meet with people and network and all of those different things. So I hope that my workshop today is helpful to you and provides you with some information that you can use. What I will say is that if you notice in the bottom corner of my presentation, that is my contact information, well, my name and my email address. And as I finish the workshop, you'll see my information at the end. So feel free, if you're looking at this on your computer, I will have a QR code that comes up if you did want to meet with me, because everyone that is in this particular major, this particular field, is considered my student. I'm the career advisor for all of you. There's no one else that you would go to. If you do go to someone else, they will refer you back to me. So if you want, you take a look at my email address in the beginning. And like I said, towards the end, I'll have my contact information as well as that of all of the rest of Career Services. So let's get started. So let's talk a little bit about Handshake. Handshake, for those of you that might not know, is a tool that we have here at St. John's University that we use in Career Services. And it's actually every student, as long as you are a student here at St. John's University, you have access to Handshake. And there are some things that are beneficial from Handshake, is you can use it to connect to employers, you can use it to connect to us at St. John's. In Career Services, we use it as the platform where if you want to make appointments to meet with us, you're able to do that either virtually, in person, whatever works best for you. So let's do a quick run through of Handshake and see how it can be beneficial to you. Handshake is something that helps all of our students launch very meaningful careers. And when it says all students, I like to keep that in there because I do work with, in addition to your particular major, I work with 16 other majors in the liberal arts and sciences. So I like to make sure that everyone realizes that this is something that is useful and accessible to all of the majors here at St. John's University. Sometimes people say, where am I going to find Handshake? You know, I hear everyone talk about it. I'm not sure if I have it. What I do like to share is I did take a caption, I captured the page of the Career Services homepage. So if you go to the St. John's University website and you find the Career Services page, along the side, you'll find one of the tabs that will say Career Tools and Resources. And as soon as you open it, you will find the section that says Handshake. And down below is where you can access Handshake. You click on it and you see your Handshake page. You can use it to, again, make appointments. You can use it to set up your profile. Handshake is a good place for you to brand yourself. Because as a student here at St. John's University, you are a brand. You are considered a brand. Your brand is St. John's University. Your brand is that in the DLIS program. Your brand is that of someone who is potentially a professional in whatever field it is that you choose to pursue once you do graduate from your particular program. The good part about Handshake also is that it's something that you don't only need to do on your computer, you're able to access it on your phone. So you can either go through it through, the Apple Store, or you can go through Google Play, and you can find it anywhere there and just download it to your phone. And enter St. John's University, and you'll have access to all of the things that you can see on the computer. Generally, when you see it on the computer, you might be able to see a little bit more because, it's obviously spread out on a larger screen. But if you have the availability to access it, all of the information that you see on your phone is exactly that of what you'll see on the computer, just smaller. So don't feel like you're getting less than anything if you do it on your phone. I like to have both. I have it on my phone as well as on my computer, because sometimes when I'm on the move and I'm doing things, I like to maybe enter events or see what's going on, or try to connect people through Handshake. And sometimes, like I said, when you make an appointment, I get to see that you made an appointment, and I can see what your particular reason is for making an appointment with me will be. And then you say, why should I use Handshake? And again, you should use Handshake again because it's free to you as long as you are a student here. And using Handshake is something that's good for you because there's 4 reasons. You can get hired through using Handshake, very similar to LinkedIn, for those of you that are familiar with that. You can also get discovered, again, by branding yourself. You can get messaged by employers that want to hire you. And that actually comes from having a complete Handshake profile. That's one of the things that I really want to stress, that yes, when you're attending St. John's University, you do have a Handshake profile, a Handshake page that's accessible to you, excuse me. But you have to make sure that you populate it with all the proper information to get discovered from employers. And that's a vital part of Handshake. Once you have it, you are able to look at employers, look at the things going on, look at the events. But what you also need to know is that in the same way that you're able to look at things that are going on or see what's going on with employers, they also have the ability to, on the flip side, look at you. And you never want an employer to look at you and you have an incomplete profile. So you should do your best to make sure that your profile has all of the elements necessary to show all of the great things that you have and to make you look as professional as possible. And because you are my students, I always will say that if you want to, I have the steps on how to create a great Handshake profile. I could meet with you one-on-one to show you what you need to do to make sure your profile is complete. And also, you want to make sure that you pay attention to Handshake because it's changing every day. When I say changing every day, that means we upload information about new employers, new job opportunities. We have a career fair that's coming up, and every semester we have a career fair. I know this is being recorded, so I won't say the date of the career fair, but we always have a career fair every semester that comes up, and we enter a lot of the information about the employers on this particular platform. Again, it's another way to get connected to employers, and it's, help with some career building resources that for you could use to connect yourself to employers, and we recommend them to you. So it's about resume writing, it's about cover letters, it's about how to interview. We have all those things where you're able to access that stuff through making appointments with us and utilizing the Handshake platform. Again, it also, as I just said, it gives you easy access to your career center. All of our appointments are made through here. So if you say, how do I go about meeting with you, when I have my information come up later, even the QR code that I'll show you later will take you directly to Handshake, because that's where all of my appointments are made. And you can choose the length of the appointment that you like to make. You could even type in a bit of information like, I'm looking for a job in this particular area, or I just need you to review my resume for me. You could put some extra information in that you might want me to pay particular attention to when you make an appointment with me. Setting up mock interviews, you can do some career planning. You can interview jobs. That's a great thing about Handshake, is that you can look for jobs, and jobs can in turn look for you. So I always say to students now, Handshake was fairly new for a moment, but now that we have it, up and running, and there's so many things that you can get through it, I would tell every student that's listening to this to make sure that not only do you access your Handshake page, not only do you check it regularly, but also you keep it up to date. If you get a new job, if you do some type of volunteer work, if you do anything that can fill up one of these sections on your Handshake profile, make sure you do that, because you never want an employer to, like I said, they can look at your profile, to look at your profile and see and there's something missing, when that's the one thing that might have put you over the top and gotten you the opportunity that you needed. So you always want to stay current on your Handshake page. We also recommend employers by the Career Center. So again, a big piece that you could see, that's a great example now, is if you were to right now register, today is March 9th, 2023. We have our career fair coming up on the 30th. If you were to register for the career fair right now, it would show you every single employer that's going to be at the career fair, what they're hiring for, the type of student that they're looking for, the area, the field that they are particularly in. So if you're in library sciences, library and information sciences, you can say, you know what, I'm interested in the social sciences, I'm interested in business, I'm interested in healthcare. It will show you which companies fall into those particular areas, and you can then do some research. So when it's time to actually have a face-to-face meeting with them, you're well prepared because you looked on Handshake and you saw their profile. Just some numbers and just some brands. So some people are visual, some people are numbers people. So I like to combine the two. If you see Handshake, it's the core recruiting platform for over 300,000 diverse employers, and 100% of the Fortune 500 companies are on there. This is just a small representation, all of these logos of the companies that we have available on Handshake. You really need to have an understanding, and even if you don't, but have an understanding of the area of employment that you'd like to go into. And then we can have that conversation again by you having saying, you know what, Kenny, I'm really interested in working for Meta. I'm really interested in working for eBay, Disney, any of the companies that are up here, or maybe some that you don't see here. And we can work together to help get you in front of them so that you're well prepared to be in front of them. You know what they're about, and you know that there's someone that we have a partnership with and that they're looking for students from St. John's University, which is always a plus. So again, it just shows you business, finance. These are some of the different areas: creative visionaries, public spirited humanitarians, innovators, technology, and they're always actively searching for students. If these companies are on the Handshake platform, this is the St. John's one, because every university has the ability to have their own Handshake platform. So if the one that you're looking at, because you're a St. John's student, just know that we created a partnership with them. They're just not randomly listed on Handshake. We have a partnership with them where they said, we know that you have students that go to your school that we'd like to hire because we know the type of students that you have. So that's the great part about looking on Handshake. I don't want to say as opposed to LinkedIn, because I'm also a very big fan of LinkedIn, but it's very similar to that. But LinkedIn is a global platform. It's open to everybody. It's not particular to St. John's University the way that Handshake is in this capacity. So even if you're not looking for a job, let's say you wanted to do an internship, you're not sure, you're ready to get out into the workforce, but you wanted to get some experience. Not only do we offer jobs on this platform, but we also offer internships on the same particular platform. So if a company, again, is willing to hire, do internships, do shadowing, do any type of volunteering, or whatever way that they like to stay connected with us, they would list that here on the Handshake platform. And then it's up to you to feel free to just go through the whole platform, ask, type in keywords, look for certain things, ask me as your career advisor, where on Handshake can I find this information, or is it even there? And then if it's not there, we'll do our best to make sure it is on there the next time you look for it. So again, this is a really good platform. And if you see all 50 states use it, 165 countries use it. And again, the ones that you'll be seeing are the ones that said we are interested in students at St. John's University. Some of the ways that you could particularly use Handshake, just so if I could take everything I just said and put it into like a few categories, is you create the profile to look for jobs that are customized towards your career goals, any internships and events that also might speak towards that might give you some type of experience or exposure to the employers that are in your particular field of interest. You can look for internships and jobs, your favorite employers. You can look at the calendar of events, because we're always putting stuff up. Like maybe last semester you wouldn't have seen this March 30th career fair coming up, but we also have employers that come to campus. We have panels that happen. We have virtual events. I know a lot of people in this program are not close enough to come to campus, or they don't have time, or their schedules don't work out. But a lot of the events that we have, and especially since the pandemic, we've learned to pivot and move a lot of events onto our virtual platform. And it's also to give people the opportunity, because sometimes people might be far from campus, they can't get to campus on time, but they still want to access the event that's going on. If it says virtual, all you have to do is find a nice quiet place to sit, get your headphones or whatever you like, and sign on, and you can participate. You can also sign up for interviews and direct message employers, which is a nice personal touch that we have. The good thing too is that the majority of our employers that we work with, for some reason, they are alum of St. John's, and I always like to say that alum of St. John's love to give back to those that come after them, because they were so happy with their experience here at St. John's that they said, you know what, I remember what it was to be a student at St. John's University, and I know what I was looking for, or how hard it was to find an internship or an employer. So I know that now that I'm in the role, I want to make sure that I give back to those that are coming after me, and that's my alma mater. You could also submit resumes. Like I said, you want to set up your resume. You can set up your resume and send in applications for jobs, because you can apply directly through the site. If you are on Handshake and you see a job opening, more than likely somewhere on that same page is something that says click here to apply now. And if your profile, and I'll say that again, please don't apply to jobs directly if you feel like you have an incomplete profile, or all you did was just sign up for Handshake. My what I'd like to stress to you again is that once you hit that apply, the information that you have on there, or the lack of information that you have on there, is exactly what the employer is going to see, and that's going to make or break you getting contacted to have you come in for an interview, be called, or even possibly just get the job right there. So you want to make sure before you apply to any jobs directly on Handshake, and I'll even again throw it to LinkedIn or anything like that, make sure you have a complete profile and even have your resume uploaded, but your resume should be proofread by your career advisor, who is me. So just know employers are waiting to connect with you. You want to make sure that you have these particular things, the job type you're looking for, what city you want to work in. That's another thing. We don't just have jobs that are in the Queens area, or it's just in Staten Island. We look for employers who have jobs sometimes that are global, that might have sites in other states. So you want to make sure that when you're looking, you can do those type of filters. You can select the type of job role that you're interested in going to. You could say, I'd like to be a marketing associate, or a data analysis, or a teacher, or anything along those lines. You can craft your search to fit what you're looking for. Sometimes people don't have time to get full-time jobs, or they already work another job and they're looking for something else to do on the side. Sure, look for a part-time job, look for an internship, whatever the location is. If you don't see it there, again, as your career advisor, it's my duty and my charge to make sure that I talk to you and say, what exactly is it you're looking for, and what don't you see on here? Let's see what we can do to get it on here and help to get you a job. Again, very personal. Handshake, you're able to message employers. You can find out about jobs you want by messaging the employer first. There is a certain type of etiquette that you must have. You can't just say, hey, I heard you got a job, anything that's out there for me. There's an etiquette and a way to ask for it. And again, I always have the ability to talk to students and say, let's prep first and let's practice first, because let's make sure you write the right thing in there so that you're seen as professional and proficient in your craft, so that you make sure that those are the people, when they do actually see the message that you send to them, that they're willing to give you a call back and not say, yeah, I think I'm going to pass on this because this is poorly written. There's grammatical errors. There's no periods. It looks like they're writing in that text language that everybody writes in, and it's not professional. Because just because you're doing it on your phone or on a computer doesn't mean that you should still write it in the shorthand that people use a lot when they write things, when they're texting their friends. Very different. Again, signing up for virtual info chats. The technology nowadays is awesome. You have the ability to use your phone. You have the ability to use your computer, as long as it has a camera on it, to have, one-on-one conversations with employers, maybe learn some stuff about it, because sometimes that's all people want to do, is just learn a little bit more before they take that leap and say, you know what, this is the road that I like to go down. I just want to make sure that this is what I want to do. And if not, I'm going to pivot and find something else. Again, on a level of professionalism, not only should you type in professional text, you should also dress for the part. Just sometimes people feel comfortable. Oh, I'm just doing this from home. I'm on my phone. I'm on my computer. Let me go make a sandwich real quick and I'm gonna hop on and talk to somebody. I'm wearing a sweatshirt or I'm just wearing a t-shirt or something that's not business-like. You would want to make sure that when you're on that phone, you should imagine yourself at a career fair. You should imagine yourself at a networking event and you're in that office and you want to dress accordingly. You should also have a list of pre-prepared questions and answers ready to make your application stand out. Always, when you're talking to somebody, especially if they're an employer, they'll probably say, great conversation. Hopefully that's the case. And then they'll probably say, so do you have any questions for me? You never want to end your interaction with an employer by saying, nope, I got all that I need. You want to make sure that you have at least 3 to 4 prepared questions that you can ask them, maybe about the company, what the culture is like, what kind of professional development do they have, what does an ideal candidate look like? Very generic, but still it's something that you can ask them. But you should always have 3 to 4 questions you ask, whether it's in person or on a virtual platform like Handshake. Attending events is also something you want to make sure you do. This is where you can meet employers. Again, it's a virtual drop-in. Anything you could do, attend career fairs virtually. We, during the pandemic, did a lot of our career fairs and events and employer activities. We did those virtually and it worked out really well. So we figured, why not continue the process? And Handshake agreed that it's a good thing that they have available where you can do the work that you need to do virtually, because we understand in the world that we live in, not everybody could get to everywhere all at once. And sometimes it's easier to just have an opportunity where you're able to log on, the person's on the other end, you either have a time to have a group discussion, a one-on-one discussion, ask a couple of questions, and then, see where it goes from there. The same etiquette that you'd have at a career fair is the same etiquette that you'd have once you meet with an employer or anyone like that. You'd want to make sure that you follow that up with some type of thank you, some type of showing of appreciation that they took the time to meet with you, because those are the things that make the impression that allow you to be successful and hopefully move on to the next part in your field. This is the part where I would normally take questions, but I know that this is being recorded, so I'm just going to jump right into the part about resumes. And again, before I do jump into the part about resumes, I just want to make sure that you are aware that at the end of this, like I said, if you have any questions about Handshake, I know I go through this, you might be able to have looked at what I'm doing, pause it, and stop and put all the elements together and log on and do everything right. If for any reason at all you have any difficulty logging onto Handshake, creating a good Handshake profile, feel free to reach out to me and say, Kenny, I was watching the video that you had about Handshake and resumes, and I just wanted to get a little bit more information or assistance on how I can make sure my Handshake profile stands out. Okay, so now we're at the part where it's great to have a good Handshake profile, but you want to make sure you have something to present to the employer once you do have your Handshake profile created. I always will tell a student that it's nice to say, I'm going to just create the Handshake profile, populate it, and go from there. I think it's always easier to kind of do something where you flip it and first create a really well-crafted resume. Because once you create that well-crafted resume, it's going to be able to populate many, many of the sections that you'll see on your Handshake profile. But let's focus in on what is a well-crafted resume. You should think about the last time you wrote a resume. Sometimes I have students that even at your level of education, they'll say the last time I wrote a resume, Kenny, was when I was in high school. I had to do it for a project. Or in one of my undergrad classes, my professor made us do it, and I think it's pretty good. And then you take that same resume and you show it to me in career services or someone else that's in career services, and we'll probably say, that's a good start, but here's how you can make it look a little bit more professional. So in this session right now, what I'll do is do my best to convey to you the way to make your resume look as professional as possible. One thing I want to say before I get started, in addition to thinking about the last time you wrote a resume, is that you have to think about your resume as a live document. You cannot take the same resume if you're applying for different jobs, different roles, different areas, different career fields, and use that same exact resume without changing the sections around a bit to make sure the most important things stand out to the employer. One of the slides that will come up later, and I'm just going to say it now because I'll be able to reiterate it later, is that when you're writing your resume, You want to make sure that the employer in the first 6 to 10 seconds, I'll say that again, that you make sure that the employer in the first 6 to 10 seconds is able to see the most relevant, the most impressive, and the most important parts of your career as a student, as a researcher, as an intern, anything else like that. They need to see that in the first 6 to 10 seconds. Because after the first 6 to 10 seconds, that's when they start to fade. And I like to give the visual that you should imagine an employer that has been weeks and weeks looking for someone to fill a role, and they're probably about at the end of their pile trying to find somebody as an employer. I'm sorry, as an employee, and yours is one of the last ones, and they're like, I'm just going to rush through this and see if I can find the key things that I need. So you want to make sure that the key things that they need to see are in the first 6 to 10 seconds of your particular resume. And again, why is a resume considered to be such an important part of the application process? It's because you don't have the ability to go and talk to every single employer that you're interested in having, hopefully getting a job with. Your resume is what speaks for you before you even have the ability to go in front and have an interview in front of someone. The other part about resumes being such an important part of the application process is that a lot of times these days there's computer programs that will receive your resume, especially if you apply online, which is the way most people apply nowadays, that they will receive your resume and that program will scan your resume for keywords that you have, particular areas of expertise that you have, um, anything that you have that shows that you are, if they're looking for if someone that speaks another language fluently, the computer program will pick out those words and see if you have that. Sometimes if you don't have enough hits from that computer program, your resume will not be seen by an employer. So you want to make sure your resume is professional, well crafted, and has all of the keywords necessary. I usually tend to say that if you know the job that you're applying for, if you can pull it up on your screen, you can look at that job description and see how many of the terms on your resume match those things. And if they're close, you can even change the word around the wording on your resume if it's close enough to use those exact words that are in the job description to make it more likely for your resume to be chosen from the pile. So let's talk about the basic structure of a resume. And again, I say the basic structure because because I'm listing it the way that you'll see it come up doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. There's a section that might come up first, a second that, based on whatever the job is that you're going for, that last section might be the one that moves into the first section, and so on and so forth. And I'll kind of give you some examples of that. Basic elements. First, top of the page, your contact information. That would be your name, your phone number, your address. And when you put your address should be just this, the city and state where you live. You don't have to put your street address. You don't have to put an apartment number if you have one. The only thing you have to put, so let's say you're here at St. John's, you would put Queens, comma, NY, not Queens, New York. Queens, comma, NY. For those of you that might live in New York City, Manhattan, you don't put Manhattan, comma, NY. You don't put New York City, comma, NY. It's New York, comma, NY. So it's your name, your phone number, your email address, and maybe if you have a LinkedIn page or you have a link to a profile, a portfolio that you have, you can always add that, but you want to make sure that it's neat, well spaced, and well written. You have what's also called a positioning statement. Sometimes people put, if you see on the picture on the right, it says career summary. It's okay to put a career summary, but sometimes those are so vague and so ambiguous that your career summary or your profile summary or anything like that, or your objective, it becomes something that if I were to take it off of your resume and put it onto anyone else's resume, no matter what their major is or their career goal is, it would fit. And that's doing a disservice to you because it doesn't bring the value that you have brought to any career that you have or you plan to bring to any career that you have. It doesn't define who you are, whereas a positioning statement does just that. It gives 3 words. Maybe it says you're a hardworking, focused, analytical, aspiring library and information sciences professional who's passionate about helping people understand, the processes or anything like that. It is very specific to you where it will be harder for me to take that particular positioning statement and apply it to almost anyone else's resume. This is something that defines who you are. What it also does is it leads the reader to continue looking at your resume. Remember the 6 to 10 seconds in the mindset of how you have set them up to look at it. Now they're looking at your resume as not just a student at St. John's University who hopes to use their skills to get a job to help your company get better. Very random, very ambiguous. They'll be looking at it as, okay, this person is an aspiring library and information sciences professional. Okay, let's see what, oh, and they're passionate about educating youth. They're passionate about providing, research for populate different populations. They will continue to read your document, your resume in that particular mindset because you have now forced them to do that by having a very strong positioning statement. Of course, you put your education, and hopefully your education will be in chronological order. Your most recent one will go on top. So your master's degree or your upcoming master's degree or your potential master's degree should be at the top. And then underneath that, you could put your undergraduate degree, and maybe even underneath that, if you got an associate's degree or any certificates or anything like that, those are the things that will go underneath that. So again, please put your most recent on top and your oldest on the bottom. Some people make that mistake not knowing that that's something that could possibly disqualify them from getting a job because they'll describe themselves as, detail oriented, meticulous, and meanwhile, they don't even know how to put the information properly on their resume where it goes in chronological order. That goes for jobs and work experience as well. Any honors and awards that you've received. So if you've received any scholarships, if you are on the dean's list, if you're a part of any honor society, or you've got an award for doing some type of spectacular work in the field of education, then you need to make sure that that's on your resume as well. It's good to show that you are someone who has worked so hard to go above and beyond to make sure that you were able to receive some type of recognition for the hard work that you've done. So again, certifications and training. If you're certified in anything, make sure your certification that you list on the resume is current. If you are no longer certified, if it's expired or anything like that, please make sure that it's not something that you have on there. If it's one of those certifications that's eternal, then of course you can put it on there. You should put the date that you received that particular certification and where you got it from. So, I'm certified in this and I received it at St. John's University and I received it on March March 2023. You don't have to put the day, just March 2023. And then relevant work experience. I know generally at the master's level, a resume can tend to run on. And I know a lot of people say, shouldn't a resume be one page? Standard practice, usually also for undergrads, is where a resume is one page long. When you get to the master's level, when you get to the doctoral level, anything like that, there is a strong chance that your resume, which then becomes what we call a CV, you will run past the page, and that's fine when you're at a certain place in your career where you've done a lot of work, where you've been in the undergrad level, where you've been in the master's level, where you've done maybe publications of things, where you've done research. Then you put it's easier to put the relevant work experience. If your career goal is to take your degree and use it for, something in the library and information sciences, but you want to make sure that they know that you work somewhere like Target or McDonald's, and it doesn't really have any relevance. It's just taking up space on your resume, and it's not really bringing the employer's eye to see, again, 6 to 10 seconds. If it's beyond the 6 to 10 seconds, because 6 to 10 seconds usually stops around maybe certifications and training, and now they're in the part where it's like they're deciding if they want to continue to read on. You don't want the first thing that they see after seeing all the stuff that's very relevant with your certificates, your education, your positioning statement. You don't want the next thing they see is that you worked at Wawa or, something that has no type of connection towards what it is that your overall career goal is professionally using the degree that you'll be getting. So I put work experience in parentheses because sometimes work experience can be put on there, but that's really to show that you're able to hold a job. I recommend that if you had a job for maybe a year or less, if you have other things that can speak towards your professionalism, I would say kind of stay away from putting work experience that's a year or less. Because what happens is instead of looking at the job that you had, sometimes people will look at, and employers more so, will look at the dates that you worked at a particular place and they'll say to themselves, this person is a job hopper. If I were to hire this person who's had a job for 1 year here, 1 year here, a few months here, unless it's seasonal, then that's exceptional. That you can make an exception for that. But if it's something where it's just a job that you would have and you have it for less than a year, they don't want to take the time, or they're less likely to take the time to hire you and put all of their money into training you, putting you on the payroll, doing all these things to get you all set up, and then in a year or less you'll be leaving, and it would be a waste of their time and a waste of their money, and then they have to go back through the process again. So sometimes if you feel like the job that you have is not relevant, and the time that you work there is very short, like I said, a year or less, I would say try your best to keep it off of the resume. Volunteer and community service always looks good. I'll say that employers are interested in people who do volunteer work and community service because, again, that's going above and beyond. And not only is that going above and beyond, but it goes to show that you're someone who's willing to take something on and do it for free. And the mindset goes back to saying, if this person is willing to do something this nice and do it for free, imagine if we were to pay them to do something for us, that's more of an incentive, and that might increase their chances of them staying on with us because look at how much they've done when they volunteer, do community service. The other part about having that on there shows that you're not one dimensional. Employers like to see someone who, yes, you're studying your craft, you're taking all the courses necessary, you've done maybe an internship or something, but what's that one thing that you did that might have been a little bit different but still very helpful towards others, or something that's been useful to the community at large? What is that thing that makes the person say, I'll use an example. When I was an advisor over in Tobin, I worked with, a lot of the finance students, the accounting students, and I saw a resume of a student that was in accounting, and every single thing they did was accounting. Their degrees in accounting, their undergrad is in accounting, they did their job experience, their internships, their volunteer, everything was in accounting. And they thought that's something that's impressive to the employers. But when I speak to the employer, they said that that person was very one-dimensional. They need to see what else can this person do, because say something happens and it falls out of the realm of accounting. Are they going to get frazzled? Are they going to know how to deal with it? How am I going to know that they're able to deal with it when they've only done that one thing and they're very one-dimensional because all they've done is accounting? So for your particular field, you want to make sure, yes, you take on experiences that give you exposure to what your possible career is, being someone in DLIS, but you also want to see, show them that you could do something, Habitat for Humanity, reading to children, different things that show that you're not just someone that does that one single thing over and over and over again. And of course, skills, you want to make sure that you show the skills that the employer will see as necessary and helpful to them in their particular field. So if you, let's say in your career as a student at St. John's in your particular field of study, have used any programs or anything to help you do your job better, and you know that in the industry, this is the same thing that they use, make sure that in your skills section, you list that you are proficient in that, you have a basic understanding of something. At least you put it on there. So the employer will say, okay, I don't have to train this person on that, or I don't have to give them much training if it's basic. They have the experience I need. And on top of that, remember what I said about the computer program, the applicant tracking system. If it sees that you are, using any of the platforms or any of the computer technology that they have that will make you better at what you do in that particular field, then that computer program is going to say, okay, there's another word to add to the bucket of words that I have that make you a better candidate, and your resume is going to move on and be put in the hands of someone who can call you in for a possible interview. Oh, and I'm sorry, and let me just go back. So if you see the way that these sections are all listed, there's some times that I've had students who I've told them, let's take, because you have so much work experience that's so relevant, and you've been out of school for a long time, and your work speaks more for itself. Sometimes we take that education section, we move it down to the bottom. The relevant work experience moves up. If they're looking for someone who's bilingual and they need someone who speaks Korean, you speak Korean, I wouldn't want your skills section to be at the bottom. That might be the third section that you see. So it'd be contact information, positioning statement, education, skills would go right underneath that. So always remember, like I said, your resume is not something that should be a frozen document that you just shoot out to everybody and hope you get a job. And then you wonder, How come nobody's calling me back? If your resume is not appealing to the reader in the first 6 to 10 seconds, there's a strong chance that you will not be contacted for an opportunity. Generally, I would ask the question to the group for, what do you think is the most common mistake when writing a resume? Sometimes students will get so excited or so anxious to get their resume out. Oh, I'm about to graduate. I really need to get my resume out because I need employers to see me. And you're in such a rush to get your resume out that you don't proofread it. You don't make sure the formatting is right. You don't make sure the spacing is correct. You don't make sure the tenses are correct. You don't make sure all the margins are even. Sometimes what happens is if you list a job where you are no longer working in that particular job, or you did a volunteer experience and you're not doing it anymore, but you listed in the present tense, that's a red flag to someone to say this person obviously did not proofread their document. And that's a sign to me that if I were to hire this person, there's a strong chance that them representing me might make me look bad because they might not proofread something before they send it to, someone that's one of our customers, one of our consumers. They're not going to proofread it because look, they don't even proofread their resume for a job they possibly say that they really, really wanted. So make sure your tense is right. If you're still there, if it's something until present, you put everything across every bullet, every line, you make it all in the present tense. Once you have that end date come, you need to go back to your resume and look through everything that you have in the present tense and put every single word in the past tense. Sometimes people put St. John's University and they feel like they should put SAINT, and it's really still how it is, ST period, John's University. So you want to make sure that you do that. And then there's other things, how you write what your GPA is, how you put certain things in bold. Make sure the font sizes are consistent. The heading where your name is, your name should be 14, 14 or 16 size font. But then the rest of the document can be 10 or 11 size font, and you want to use a standard font, Times New Roman. Any of those ones that kind of, whenever you just sign on to Word or anything, or Google Pages, anything like that. I'm sorry, Apple Pages, anything like that. You want to make sure that that whatever that standard is that they give you, you can use that as a default. Sometimes if students work directly with me, I have templates that I've created where the font's a little bit different, still very professional, but it's also a little bit more unique and it doesn't look like the generic ones like the Times New Roman or anything like that, because you want it to still be professional, but also stand out. What students will tend to do sometimes, and this goes back to formatting, is they'll put a lot of boxes and borders and they put their name in like a colorful yellow box at the top, and then have their skills listed down the side, and then a line, and then their jobs. I'll tell you right now that if you do that on a resume, the applicant tracking system will look at that and get extremely confused with all the lines in the boxes, and it will misread everything on your resume, and it will probably reject your resume because it doesn't understand what it is. So when I work with students, I know that sometimes you'll say yes, but I don't want my resume to look like everybody else's. So that's why I put the blue box on the side and the ivy flowers along the border. But what happens is all of those things that you add are just look like a mess to the applicant tracking system, and your resume is going to get rejected. Generally, what happens is, let's say you were to put your name, your contact information, and maybe some of your accolades in a box on the top and the box along the side. What the applicant track, if it's like the blue box on the side and the yellow box across the top, what the applicant tracking system sees are none of the words that are in that yellow box and none of the words that are in the blue box. They see a big empty yellow box and a big empty blue box. So now all of the things that you wanted to stand out aren't even being seen by this program. So now you've done yourself a disservice, and you'll still be wondering weeks later, how come they never contacted me? I was a perfect candidate for this opportunity. And the sad part is that the only thing that you might have been the perfect candidate for the opportunity, but the only thing that kept you from getting that opportunity is that you did not format your resume correctly. So I will ask anybody that is listening to this, please, it might be like, oh, but it's going to be so boring. Please do your best to just make your standard resume with the bullets, not a bunch of lines, black font. Put your borders towards the end as much as possible. We can customize them if we talk to each other. I'll tell you to figure out how to do it, depending on how many. If it's 1 page or 2 pages, we can work on that. But try your best to not put all of those extra bells and whistles that you think you need to put on it to get it noticed, because it will not get noticed. And again, like I said, avoid spelling errors. You should proofread the document, and then after you proofread it 4 more times, and then give it to someone else. Let your career advisor, let me look at it. Let me proofread it. There's times when I've gotten a resume sent to me, and as soon as I open it and I put it up on my monitor, I say, oh, these 2 fonts, they're off. Don't look at those bullets. They're off by 1 space. I can see those things, and I can see them as a career advisor. So people who are in the hiring process, if they're really meticulous and they really want to figure out, we have a lot of applicants for this opportunity. We need to find ways to kind of, trim the herd and cut people off. Let's see who messes up on formatting and spelling and all of those things on their resume. And then you get disqualified just for those simple things. It's been done. I've spoken to employers where they do that. I used to be like, well, that's kind of petty, but they're the employers. They can do what they want, and there's nothing wrong with it because they want someone who dots their I's and crosses their T's, literally. So again, back to the contact information should be visually appealing. Pardon me. Make sure you brand yourself. Your name should be your first name and your last name. Make it very easy to contact you. I've seen people where they have the resume and they just have the city and state where they live, but they don't put a way to contact them. You should have an email address and you should have a phone number on there. You shouldn't assume like, well, everyone wants to contact me through email, so I'm just going to put email. There's some employers whose their preference is to call, and then on the flip side, there's some employers who their preference is to email you. And you have to make it as easy as possible for them to choose whatever it is that they want to choose. Because if someone looks at your resume and they're one of those people that fall into the phone call category, and you only have your email address on there, maybe your LinkedIn, link, and they're going to say, well, I can't call this person. They would have been a good candidate, but I'm calling people. So let's move on to the next person. And you just missed an opportunity. When it comes to your email address, while you're students here at St. John's University, it doesn't hurt to use a professional one, your St. John's email address, but just know after a while, when you graduate, you no longer have access to that particular email address. So I tend to tell people that Gmail is a good way to get that and make it your first name and your last name, your first initial dot your last name, anything that makes the name that you have, the handle that you have for your email address should look as close as possible to your name that's in the title above you. As it goes for voicemails, so you have your phone number there. Please don't be one of those people that have a song or a very long greeting or a quote or something that's on your voicemail that makes it difficult for the person just to contact you. If you are someone that's looking for a job, you should have either that generic automated one that comes on, hello, you have reached so and so, they're not able to answer the call right now, please leave a message, or your voice saying, this is Kenneth, I'm not able to come to the phone right now, but please leave a message at the end of the tone and I will get back to you at my earliest convenience. Always make it as simple as possible. Don't make it something long because you will get hung up on, and that is an opportunity that shall be missed. Again, with your education, how I said it before. Also, if you notice on the third line, it says list your GPA if it's over at 3.5. Standard practice. It's nothing to make you feel bad about your life if you have less than a 3.5, but just standard practice on resumes is to put a 3.5 or higher on the resume. That also will possibly mean that you've gotten some kind of honor award, dean's list, anything like that. So make sure you list all of those type of accolades that you receive from getting the 3.5 or higher. So what I said before about how you list it chronologically, if you notice, the doctorate is above the bachelor's degree, and maybe in the middle of that could have come a master's degree. But the way that you list it, if you see 2018, oldest goes on the bottom, newest goes on the top. 2023 is what goes on the top. And you want to make sure you list it as such. Same thing with your jobs. Your most recent job is what goes on top. And then your oldest job, which you go back maybe I'd say about 7 years or so, between 7 to 10, I say standard of 7. It also allows for there to not be crowding on your resume. Go back on your resume there, but the oldest one should be at the bottom. So for your experience, you want to include employment, internships, research, any leadership experience. Leadership experience is if you're parts of any organization. Sometimes I say my student athletes, they are leaders if they're parts of clubs or any of the school activities that they take part in. If you do something other than just, go to your class and come back, if you would have attached yourself to some type of organization and you're a member, you're the treasurer, you're the president, whatever it is, you're the founder, that's something that you can list under leadership experience. And then you see volunteer work. I always say write things in a bullet form. Again, it is something that you are being nice to the person who is reading it. So you don't list it in a paragraph where they have to start reading across lines and try to cherry pick the information that they're looking for. It's just something that happens in the brain where if you have it in a bulleted form, it's processed a whole lot quicker for the person that's looking at it rather than having to every time you list a job, you write this little summary or whatever about all the things that you've done and why you've done them and how great you are. It's a lot easier for it to get noticed, accepted, and have them contact you if you write down your job descriptions in bullet form. You should always start your bullets with action words, um, assisted, led, um, provided, enhanced, different things that are action words of what you've done. You can also use buzzwords that the company is looking for because you should do your research also when you're applying for jobs. So there should be buzzwords that you see. You notice you looked on a particular website or their social media page and they tend to stand for something or use certain words a lot or terminology that they use. You want to make sure that if you've done those particular things, you might not have it on your resume. You can replace what you have on your resume with the buzzwords that they use. And then for the next company or organization or anything that you're applying to, you make sure that you change, like I said, live document, you change your resume around again so that those people see you use the buzzwords for their particular organization or company. And then you can also break up the experience section. So it goes back to my point where I said sometimes you don't need them to know that you worked at a place like a 7-Eleven or McDonald's if it's not relevant to what your career goal is. If it is relevant, then sure, keep it on. But some of your jobs that you just had, like, maybe I worked in retail, but it was just to kind of keep me, money in my pocket while I was at St. John's, but it really had nothing to do with my career goals. I would say try your best to keep it off of the resume. So you can list things such as research experience. You could put your relevant experience that you have. Again, relevant means that it speaks towards what the job opportunity that you're looking for, or even just the opportunity that you're looking for. It could be an externship, anything like that. Whatever the opportunity that you are providing that resume for, that's what the relevant experience is. Any leadership experience is good to see as well. And then again, like I said, you want to make sure you use action statements. Sometimes people will default to saying, you know what, I'm just going to copy and paste. And I remember when I applied for the job, I saved the job description and it said the person who does this job should be able to, and then they have all the bullets of the things that they ask of that person. What you need to understand is that does you, again, a disservice. If you have brought value to that position, that opportunity that you've taken part in, you want to maybe, yes, take what the job description is that was provided for you, but you want to tweak it a little bit. You want to make it a little bit more personable. You want to make it that you are the person that, yes, I did this particular job. And because I did it, I increased the social media presence of people that are signing on to this program. I made sure that I increased profits by 30%. Those are the type of things that they're not going to be in the job description because it's a very generic thing. But on your resume, you want to make sure you did that. Even if you say something as simple as, I answered the phones, there's another way that you could say it, and you want to make sure that you say it in the most professional way. Saying answered phones doesn't impress anyone. A lot of people can answer phones, but it's the way that you say it that makes it impressive. Sometimes people say, yeah, but you know what, Kenny, if all these things you're telling me to do, I feel like I'm bragging. And I say, you know what? You're not bragging. These are accolades. These are things that you worked hard for. Bragging is something when you're petty, maybe you're just like talking bad about somebody or making someone feel bad about themselves. But what you're really doing is just talking about the accomplishments that you worked very hard for in your career here at St. John's University or anything that you've done external to St. John's while you were here getting your education. And now you just want to highlight those things on your resume. And that's the way to look at it. So I put toot your own horn because there's so many students that I've worked with that avoid putting so many of the great things that they've done on their resume because they say, you know what, I didn't put it on because it's like I'm bragging and I'm not that kind of person. And that's true. Whatever you put on your resume, it should look professional. It should be accolades and it should be properly written on the resume. And this is an example of the strong versus weak action statement. I always want to put this on here because I'll say it, but maybe sometimes people need to see it for them to understand it. So the weak, let's look on the left side, where you say the weak action statement is where you say conducted market analysis. That's great. A lot of people can conduct market analysis. The same thing said a little bit stronger that will make a person look at your job description twice is if you say, again, instead of conducted market analysis, collaborated with a group of 5 to conduct market analysis on mobile application usage utilizing quantitative surveys. So again, the top one, the weak one, might be what they ask of you when you first apply to the job. The person who is in this role should be able to conduct market analysis. So yes, you were able to do that. And in your role doing that, you collaborated with a group of 5, you utilized quantitative surveys, you did so much more in that role, and now it brings it a little bit more personal to you. So now it's like, okay, not only did this person do the job that was asked of them, they did it in such a grand scale that it's very impressive. Also on the right side, like the example I said, answered phone and made appointments. That's one of the more generic things that people say, especially if they've done some type of admin work. But picture you saying, instead of saying answered phone and made appointments, the strong way of saying is that you provided excellent customer service to a high volume of clients by scheduling 25 to 50 appointments in person and on the phone. That's a lot more impressive than saying answered phone and made appointments. So those are 2 small examples of what it is, showing a strong versus weak action statement. And when you think about that for your resume, you should always say, I'm going to go with the strong one. You don't want to put too much words in it to make it too wordy, but you also don't want to make it where it's weak, like the ones that are above on here. I like to include this section as well, where you say other common sections of a resume. So as I just kind of click through them quickly. So your skills should be any languages that you speak, any computers that you're proficient in, or even have a basic understanding of, any, certified in CPR, anything like that. What I tend to say you should stay away from is if you have to put the word skills in your skills section, you stay away from it. So if you just put leadership skills, communication skills, um, any type of skills that you feel technical skills. If you have to use the word skills, then don't use it. Instead, be a little bit more specific. So you can let them know my leadership skills are, that I'm able to speak 3 different languages. And especially if you're applying to a job in the United States, if you're bilingual, it's 2 languages. It could be English and some other language. If you're multilingual, it's English and maybe 2 or more other languages. What I was going to say is make sure that if you're applying to jobs within the United States, the standard is English is the language that you have. You don't have to list that's one of the language you speak. So it's English and then one of the other things. So you're multilingual, English is not in there. You put Korean and French. So the 2 things that are listed are Korean and French. Sometimes people say, yeah, but I don't want to put that because I'm not that good in it. There's ways to list the type of proficiency you have in the particular language that you speak. So if you speak basic Spanish, or you can be intermediate Spanish, or it's fluent or native, that's what you let the employer know. So they'll never say, oh, but you put on your resume that you speak Spanish, so we expect you to speak to everyone Spanish. You could put, well, I only put basic or maybe conversational. But if it's native, you put that on there, let them know that no matter what comes up, they need someone who speaks Spanish, you're the person to go to. Any professional associations or certifications that you've received, you make sure that's listed on your resume. Any projects that you might have worked on, maybe in class or individually, independently, you want to make sure you list those. Relevant coursework can also go on your resume. Sometimes you'll say, I don't have enough experience, and this job is always asking me for experience. Know that your experience is the courses that you're taking, and especially the courses that are very specific towards the role that you're applying for. So if you've taken courses in a particular area and they make you proficient in your craft, where you're someone who could do the work that's being asked of that particular job description, you list those relevant courses on your resume. Again, the applicant tracking system will love to see all those words that come across your resume. It increases your chances of getting it seen. And also the employer likes to see that they don't have to really train you on too much or teach you too much because you know a lot of it already through the things that you've learned in your courses here at St. John's University. And anything you might have published, I know in this particular area, and especially at this level, in the master's level, there is a chance that someone has done some type of research, they published something, they worked on a project, they've done something together. There's a certain way that you should list it on your resume, so it kind of shows the work that you've done, who you've done it with, what the topic was, and when it was published. Those are a lot of the elements that you need to make sure that you have if you have published anything at any point in your career. Either here at St. John's or even once you leave St. John's University. Again, presentations, any honors and awards, they can be academic, but they can also be ones that you received out in the community. It doesn't have to be particular to St. John's University. If you've received some community award for something that you've done, that's something you want to make sure that you show on your resume. And then campus involvement, if you've been a member or officer of any clubs or organizations, you make sure that you're able to show that as well. And then finally, on this page, you want to make sure that you talk about any professional development that you've done. If you've attended conferences, there's things on LinkedIn Learning, if you have access to that, where you can get certificates in particular areas that you think are important, that might make you more marketable to an employer because you're good at this particular type of programming, or you know how to do public speaking for something. You want to make sure that you display that on your resume, which again, sometimes might make it go towards 2 pages, and people weigh, should I keep it 1 page or should I put the, the things that the accolades that I've received on my resume? I will always say default to the accolades, let them see the accolades, and I feel like they'll read on, especially if you're someone who has captured them in that first 6 to 10 seconds, letting them know how professional you are. There's a strong chance that they'll read on. And I know there's a lot of people that will say, oh, employers don't read after 2 pages. They just don't. So don't make it 2 pages. What that tends to do is it shies you away from showing all the great things that you've done, and it decreases your chances of being competitive and standing out from the rest of the people that are going for the opportunity that you are going for as well. So some key points to remember is to make sure, I said this before and I've said it a couple of times, is to make sure that you tailor your resume to each employer that you are applying to. Make sure you show them what you can do for them, not just what your role defines you able to do, because that's what the job description was when you applied for the job. Anytime you are able to create some level of change or improve something in the role that you're in, doing the job that was listed in that job description when you applied to the job, you need to make adjustments to your resume and change the wording to make it to show what you can do for the employer. Again, like I just been saying, first 6 to 10 seconds on average is how long an employer will look at your resume before deciding if they want to read the rest of it. So if they're asking for a language, if they're asking for a computer, some type of skill you have, if they want to know somebody who has some level of community involvement or works with a particular population, if you have that information and it is buried down in the 15th to 20th second of your resume, do your best to take that live document and make sure you move that section as high as possible on the resume. Generally, you want to keep your education at the top if you're a new graduate, but the rest of things can be found. You can place the rest of things underneath it. And then be specific. Make sure you quantify when possible and make it look professional. So again, quantify. I increased the, revenue by 30%. I made people aware of it by taking the social media platform and transferring it. Now we went from 100 followers to 5,000 followers. So make it look professional. Professional means there are no errors because that is your golden ticket to getting an interview. If you mess that up, you might as well say, I shouldn't have even sent a resume in the first place. And again, going back to what I spoke about earlier about Handshake, if you have a really well-written resume, when you are populating your Handshake page, when you are populating your LinkedIn page, it's going to be a walk in the park because you have the majority of the elements on a well-written professional resume where there are no errors. With that said, that brings me to the end of my particular workshop, talking about Handshake as well as resume writing. What I like to do if I'm doing this generally in front of a live audience, I will talk for a while as I'm doing now and keep my contact information up here. So like I said on the first slide, when I started my workshop and I showed the Handshake overview, it had my email address. What I add here is all of my contact information, and usually I will do this for various audiences, various majors, some of them not even mine. But the good part is that everyone listening here is someone that I advise. I am your career advisor. So what I'll say for you is if you're looking at this on your computer, look at the QR code and scan it with your phone if you want to aim it at the screen, and it'll bring you to Handshake. if you would like to contact me and you're looking at this or listening to this on your phone, obviously you can't scan a QR code from your phone with your phone. Um, you can email me and just let me know that listened to my particular workshop. You had a couple of questions. You might have wanted to meet with me. Again, I do virtual appointments. I do in-person appointments. It really depends on what works best for you. Sometimes I'll even say most of the time, my calendar does fill up very, very quickly. So you might go to make an appointment with me and you'll say, you know what, Kenny, I don't see any availability for you. I'll always tell a student if there's a way that you email me and we could maybe work it out where I find a slot of time that I have available that you might not see on your end, I'll do what I can to adjust my calendar and see if I can fit you in because I do want to make sure I am as helpful as possible and as big of a resource as possible for the students that I provide services for. In addition to that, not only can you stay in contact with me and find different ways for us to work together, what I have here is the social media platforms that we do use. St. John's Career Services Department is available and visible on these particular platforms. On the right side, if you ever are on campus or you wanted to stop in, my particular office is in St. John's Hall, room 103. This is where I'm located. We do have our administrative office, the main office, which is CCK. Because I'm the career advisor for St. John's College, I'm located in St. John's College or St. John's Hall. So you can find me. For those of you that are affiliated with the Staten Island campus, if there are any, you obviously see that information underneath mine, and that's Flynn Hall, room 115. But again, when you get a chance, we do a lot of the stuff that we advertise or talk about on Handshake and different platforms. Handshake is there. You could also find that information. We post things on LinkedIn. We post things on Instagram. We have our page, obviously, on the St. John's page. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We try our best to be as informative and helpful as possible in all ways possible because people might not always have the opportunity to talk to us or engage us. And you're just sitting, maybe riding the bus, or you're out one day and you're like, "What's going on with career services? I wonder if there's something I could take part in." You go to your social media, you scroll a little bit, you find that if there's anything interesting, and you can either sign up for stuff or let me know that you're interested in things, and we can work together to make sure that we do our best to be as helpful as possible and provide you with as many services as possible. So, um, that's the end of my particular workshop on those two topics, and I thank you for listening to me. Um, Again, I really would like to say that if there's anything that you need help with, feel free to just reach out to me and I'll do what I can to be as helpful as possible. That's why I go back and I put my information on and I end with this. So again, thank everybody so much. Thank you all so much for taking part in my workshop. My name again is Kenneth E. Megabo, and I am the Career and Internship Advisor here at St. John's Hall and St. John's College, and I am your career advisor, and I hope to speak to some of you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. That was very informative. As usual, I just want to take a moment to go, like, kind of review a little bit in terms of when you put up that slide with all of those employers that our students have access through Handshake. Um, some of our students in DLAS may not even consider a multinational corporation as a potential employer in LAS, and that's something that we've encountered where a number of our students have just they just don't think of it that way. They don't think that an MLS or MSLIS can get them into those spaces. But my slide's not participating, I'm not cooperating. But we have professions or job titles like knowledge management. Each one of those major corporations has archives where they archive correspondence, board meetings, prospectuses. Like there's archival spaces. There's also data analysis, there's research analysis, records analysis, and management. And in our program, for those students listening, there are career paths that you can take as electives. So we do offer the Advanced Certificate in Management for information professionals, and that's a helpful additional credential that you can earn while you're in DLIS. And that would lead you into that special librarianship field as we have defined it in DLIS. And that's librarianship in a corporate context. That's not a law firm. So in a public company, doing that kind of work, records management, archival management. There are some companies that have cultural collections. So the company owns artwork, and but those materials, those artifacts, have to be maintained and made and cataloged and et cetera. There's also the advanced certificate in social justice in the information professions. That would be a great tool to work at an NGO or a nonprofit organization. Again, as chief information officer or in the office of institutional advancement, where your research skills would come in and grant writing skills, other things that you can acquire while you're in the division. And then third, this is a newer pathway that we're offering. If you go into our records and information management specialization now, you take in that 5 courses, 5 electives, and you can sit for the sixth part of the certification exam to become a certified records manager. And I've been monitoring the job postings for that description, and I mean, that adds about $50,000 to $60,000 to your base salary upon completion of the degree. So there are spaces that you may not consider. Uh, none of us are in None of us pursue an MSLIS for money and power. We do it to serve our neighbors and to serve our communities. But there are ways that you can do that by being a socially justice minded person in a major multinational corporation. And we have career pathways for that. So if anyone's interested, please discuss it with your advisor. We're heading into advisement now. Speaking of, advisement goes on until from March 6th until April 25th. Uh, Next, this webinar, we're going to hear from an alumna who is the assessment librarian at a City University of New York campus. And then Easter recess happens April 6th to 10th. So thanks again, Kenneth. Thank you, everybody who's watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks again.